Welcome back to The Explainer. So, today we're going to peel back the layers of ancient Rome to find out where the real pulse of the empire was. And I'll give you a hint, it's not where you think. It wasn't in some grand palace or a shiny temple. Nope, it was somewhere a lot more, well, familiar.
All right, let's do a little thought experiment. Just picture ancient Rome for a second. What's the first thing that pops into your head?
I'm willing to bet you see these huge, gleaming marble temples, right? Or maybe the Colosseum with gladiators battling it out. You probably imagine Caesars and their flowing togas, or powerful senators debating big ideas in the forum. It's this image of grandeur and order.
But here's the thing. We're going to step past all that. We're going to visit the real Rome. And that Rome, the true, messy, chaotic, and incredibly vibrant heart of the empire, it wasn't in those shiny, pristine buildings. It was in the humble, probably smelly, and absolutely essential roadside tavern.
Yep, you heard me right. The tavern. Or, as the Romans called them, the tabernae. See, these little places were the absolute backbone of the empire. They were the hubs that connected everything and everyone along those famous Roman roads. They were the lifeblood of the whole operation.
So, what exactly was a taberna? Well, it was basically an all in one stop for anyone on the road. I mean, everyone: soldiers, merchants, farmers, government officials, even slaves. For them, this was their gas station, their diner, their motel, and their internet connection, all rolled into a single, probably crowded room.
Okay, so let's imagine we're walking into one right now. What would we see? Well, first things first, forget any idea of fine dining. These places were all about pure, unadulterated function, no frills whatsoever. The whole layout was designed for speed. Right at the front, you'd have this counter for fast food style service. Behind that, you'd find some smoky back rooms for people to sit and eat. And if you needed a place to crash, the shared lodging in the back was, well, let's just say it was famously basic. Yeah, that front counter was literally the ancient world's fast food joint. You'd see these big clay jars called dolia built right into the counter, keeping the food hot. And get this, it wasn't just for weary travelers. For tons of people living in the city, in these tiny, cramped apartments, cooking at home was a massive fire hazard. So the local taberna wasn't a treat, it was a daily necessity.
All right, so let's talk about the food. What could you actually get to eat here? You got to remember, the menu was designed for two things: speed and cost. This wasn't about a gourmet experience. It was pure fuel to get you back on that long Roman road.
So the menu was pretty simple and starchy. You're looking at things like pulse, which is this thick grain porridge, lots of highly spiced sausage, and you can bet those spices were doing a great job of covering up how, let's say, fresh the meat was. Plus, you'd have your hard-boiled eggs, cheeses, lentils, bread, olives, nuts. It was heavy, fatty, salty food designed to keep you going. But the real surprise on the menu? The wine. Now, this is fascinating. You see, unlike today, drinking wine straight was seen as, well, barbaric. So they always watered it down. And on top of that, they'd mix in all sorts of things to make it taste better: herbs, myrrh, honey, to make a drink called mulsum. And believe it or not, sometimes even salt water. It tells you a lot about how rough the cheap tavern wine must have been. Now, when you cram a bunch of people from every walk of life into a small space, ply them with cheap wine, and have very few rules, things are going to get interesting. And they did. These taverns developed a pretty seedy reputation, especially among the Roman upper class. They saw them as these disgusting dens of vice and drunkenness. For example, Gambling with dice was a huge deal. It was technically illegal, yeah, but that didn't stop anyone. It was happening constantly in the back rooms. In fact, we found graffiti on old tavern walls that are basically just scorecards with people bragging about their winnings. It was the place where you could win a fortune or, more likely lose everything in just one night.
So you end up with these two totally opposite views of the same place, right? The Roman elite looked at a tavern and saw nothing but vice and low class behavior. But for pretty much everyone else, it was a place of freedom. It was a break from the strict social rules. It was a place to find a bit of community on a long journey. And most importantly, it was where you got the real story.
And this is maybe the most crucial point of all. The tavern's most important job wasn't serving food or pouring questionable wine. It was spreading information. You have to remember, in a world with no newspapers, no TV, no internet, the tavern was the news network. Think about it. Before there was a widespread official postal service, news could only travel as fast as a person could walk or ride. And where did every single one of those travelers stop? Soldiers coming back from the frontier, merchants with the latest market prices, government officials carrying new laws. They all ended up in the exact same roadside taverns. Honestly, the best way to think about it is this. The tavern network was the Roman Empire's original social media. It was a physical network that stitched this huge, sprawling territory together, one conversation, one piece of gossip, one rumor at a time. This made the tavern owner one of the most well-informed people around. They were like an intelligence broker, just by listening to everyone who passed through. A farmer could pop in for a quick drink and leave knowing who the new emperor was, or what was happening in a battle hundreds of miles away, or what the price of grain was back in Rome. It was incredible. So, in the end, if you really want to understand ancient Rome, you have to look past the perfect marble statues. You have to look to these loud, messy, crowded, but absolutely essential places. The taverns were the real engine rooms of the empire's economy and its social life. They show us a Rome that's so much more human and, frankly, a lot more relatable. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on, doesn't it? If the humble Roman tavern can tell us so much about their entire civilization, how their economy worked, their social classes, how information moved, what are our own everyday spots going to say about us? What story will our fast food joints and coffee shops tell people hundreds of years from now?